and welcome to Stock Market Today. Ali Corum along with Justin Nielsen here to break down today's market action, where we saw gains across the board, but with the 10-year yield on the move, Justin, a little bit of a mixed bag underneath the surface in terms of what was looking hot.
Absolutely. There was a little bit of this rotation going on. You had energy and financials. Those were where it was at. Some of the areas that we have been seeing strength in, real estate and utilities even, so on, not so great. But we'll take a look at Tesla because the deliveries there are certainly spectacular, something to look at right there. Also, we'll take a look at Devon Energy in the energy sector and Wells Fargo in the financial sector.
All right, we will do that. But first, let's check in on the major indexes. So the NASDAQ leading today up about 1.2%. We also had the Russell 2000 up almost 1%, and the S&P 500 and Dow up about 6 to 0.7% a piece. So we had a nice little pullback here for the NASDAQ, Justin, but a considerable move off of the 50-day line today. So what is your take on where we're at?
I really like the action that we saw last week. It was really picture perfect. You had that nice rally that started on December 21st. The pullback was orderly. There wasn't really heavy volume distribution. Even the price losses were pretty mild. If you turn over to the S&P 500, it was basically the same story. The S&P 500 actually looked a little bit better in that it held the majority of its gains from Monday last week, and it really stayed in that upper part of its range. So both of the indexes are right there. It kind of made it so that that pullback created some more setups. You had a number of stocks that were pulling back to their 50-day lines, and now you saw some bounces today. So I think it's very positive action. We'll see. We still have to be flexible, see how it plays out. Again, there was some rotation under the surface today, but the indexes themselves look pretty good.
All right. Well, let's also take a look at Tesla, Justin, capturing a lot of attention in today's trading session. Finished the day with a gain of about 13.5% with some above average volume to boot. And it looks like it's knocking on the door of that 1200 level.
Yeah, so I mean, the big thing here is, we knew this was coming. The Q4 deliveries, they really blew out those estimates. A lot of people were thinking that 300,000 would be just amazing if they hit that, and they did. 308,600, and that is even with some of the recall issues that they've had lately here in December. So that really kind of sent Tesla skyrocketing, and we were looking at this double bottom entry of 1202.05. That's 10 cents above that high of the middle of the W. But last week, because of this pullback, we were offered an earlier entry. So you could use the high of last week as your early entry for a little handle tacked onto this double bottom. And that gave you an earlier entry of almost 100 points at 1119.10. So it's always nice to get that early entry, and I should disclose that I do have a position in this myself. So for some people, maybe you were buying as it was coming off in that rally off of December 21st, but today certainly was a little bit more of that traditional buy point as it crossed above that handle, and now you're right there, ready to break above that double bottom as well.
All right, and let's just take a quick look at the weekly chart, see how far above it is above the 10-week line. By the close, about 11.5% above the 10-week line, but at the open, it was up about 7, maybe 8%. So investors, even if they waited till today to get in or maybe get back in, it seemed like you could manage your risk even with move up 7% in the first hour or so of trade.
Yeah, and on Ibd Live today, you did that same exact thing, Ali. You put up, hey, where is this in relation to its 50-day moving average line? And it was right there in that 7%, 8% level. So it was certainly actionable this morning, getting a little extended from that early buy point from that handle. But again, you're right there at the double bottom entry. So I think you could still make an argument for it. But be careful because, again, something that goes up 13% in a day, 13.5% in a day, it would be normal for it to take a little bit of a breather, and you don't want to necessarily get shaken out in that. Also, for more information on some of those deliveries, Tesla was our stock of the day, the Ibd stock of the day. So Jillian Rich had a nice story on that today.
All right. And now let's take a look at Devon Energy DVN. A nice looking little setup here with a lot of energy stocks on the move today, Justin, and Devon up about 3.5%.
Yeah, energy was definitely one of the strong spots. Just real quickly, maybe take a look at XLE because that really kind of shows you. I mean, it was a nice move. This was the biggest sector spider ETF move today, and this was getting back above the 50-day moving average line. Now let's take a look again at Devon. By the way, this is what a lot of the stocks looked like in this group. But you take a look at Devon, and Devon was already. I mean, it got to a new high today. So it's in a very different position. That relative strength looks stronger. The relative strength rating is at a 98. It was already clearing that 50-day moving average line last week very decisively. So in a lot of ways, Devon is showing some stronger leadership. Now, some people would argue, well, isn't the move kind of done? It's too expensive. But our style is more looking at that strength, and this one is certainly one of the stronger names in the group. But I would say that there was a lot of the groups, not just the U.S. explorers and producers that were participating today. That was definitely the standout group last year, but we're seeing that spread out into more of the integrated, the field services, the pipeline transport, all throughout the oil and gas industry. But it is also important to note when you are investing in this field, kind of know what your mix of gas versus oil is, natural gas, because they can move differently. And so you just kind of want to know if you're going to buy an individual stock, know a little bit about what you own and how it's going to move to what commodity.
Exactly. And even though Devon didn't stay above its 50-day line in December, look at this big shakeout, which turned out to be a really nice week of support for the stock. So that
Yeah.
also is a good thing to see.
Right, exactly. And I mean, energy was starting to look a little shaky, but again, this is the nature of the market that we saw last year. There was a lot of rotation, and today we kind of saw that rotation return to a certain degree. A lot of the areas that we had been talking about were not as strong today, and energy financials that had been taking a
Mhm.
little bit of a break were definitely the standouts.
Yeah. So speaking of financials, we'll start out this section of the show by looking at XLF to put that in perspective,
Mhm.
getting back above its 50-day line with a move of about 1.3%. And we want to focus on Wells Fargo today because look at this move above the 50-day line with the stock up almost 6% on the day. An interesting looking entry with earnings about a week and a half away.
Yeah, so one of the issues here is, Wells Fargo. I mean, you take everything else out, and this chart action looks very promising. The relative strength, you could say, hey, yeah, that relative strength line was lagging for a little bit, but I love flat bases. When the market is kind of in a little bit of a topsy-turvy volatile mode, which it really was since November 22nd, the top in the NASDAQ and S&P 500, the short-term top, that was only a 12% depth to that flat base. I love when flat bases occur during market volatility. It just kind of shows, hey, people are not selling this in a big way. Institutions are not
Mhm.
selling this in a big way. So I think that's a positive thing. But you do have to look at the fact that okay, look at the estimates. This was a bang out year in 2021, and the estimates are pretty strong there. But next year's estimates, not so great, so it doesn't really kind of fit our typical CanSlim criteria. You do have improvements in the yields, right? A lot of people were looking at the 10-year Treasury yield today, how much that was up. The fact that the 2-year wasn't up as much, so that kind of helped that yield curve, that spread between the 10-year and the 2-year. That's definitely good for the banks, and a lot of financials. So you do have that condition in the industry happening here. And a lot of times the N in CanSlim, we will say new condition in the industry, and this could be the catalyst for it. Wells Fargo was certainly the leader of the sector spider ETF, the XLF that you brought up. This was the top stock in that ETF.
All right. Well, interesting action to note there today, Justin. Thank you so much. And this week, it's a pretty busy week, Justin. So, a couple things to preview. Since it is the first week of the month, we will be having our scorecard webinars for
Right.
both leaderboard and swing trader. So, we have leaderboard coming up on Tuesday, swing trader coming up on Thursday. So, we're going to break down the action that we saw in December. So, there will be a lot to discuss.
And kind of a year-end
Yeah.
wrap up. I'm actually putting together the data right now for the leaderboard scorecard. What were the biggest winners in the portfolio, and what were the biggest losers? And so we'll be going through that.
Yeah, tune in to find out, and make sure you go to leaderboard.investors.com tomorrow and click on the banner for the webinar. Looking forward to that. We're going to have David Ryan on IBD Live tomorrow morning. It'll be great to have him back on the show, and a lot more coming up this week. So it's going to be exciting. We're kicking off 22 with a bang. All right.
As
Thanks
always.
for
So
joining,
Happy New Year.
everyone. Happy New Year.